Well, this isn't trickle down economics. It's give rich people more and the poor people. That's a premise of this. They mention it over and over is the negative aspects of greed or consumerism, the higher productivity, the inequality is all balanced out by the poor being lifted.
Phails at philosophy.
Yeah, that's the argument, is that all, like, even if there's greater inequality, the poor are lifted.
Yeah.
Right.
They've got a higher standard of living.
Right.
And we need the rich to get really rich in order for the poor to get a little bit less poor or to have a better standard of living.
Right.
Yeah.
And that may be true, right? Like there may be the case may be that to set up an economic system that produces the best life for the people who are the least well off within that system, some inequality, some foregrounding of self-interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is going to bring that about. Like that's an empirical question, right? We can, and often the problem is we get caught up in our ideologies and trying to assess that as an empirical question, right? Like what strategies actually produce what outcomes.
Yeah.
But you actually have to check the outcome, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't just say it's making poor people's lives better if it's not.
Yeah. It's the rising water lifts all boats type.
Right. But it may not. It may
might
be that
not.
the rising water just floods you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of the beginning chapters. The notes I have are merchant. Adam Smith talks a lot about the merchant class, which I thought about you because your studies were about how the merchant class gave rise to the Freemasons, right?
Yeah, to some extent. Yeah.
So I thought, hey, maybe Grant's going to be
that kind of new economic class that's emerging around this time. Yeah, definitely.
And this is around, how should the merchants behave? And they talk about their accumulation of wealth for the merchant class would be a boon to society. But at the same time, they said, don't expect kindness, generosity, or compassion from them.
Right.
They're going to act in ways that are very, very like predictable. If you present something that's in their best interest, it needs to be mutually beneficial. They're not going to do something because like, oh, this just benefits you. There's not an altruistic kind of bone in their body. It's when you go talk to them, I think the quote they had was, if you go and ask them for something, you need to make sure they understand how it's good for them and how it's going to benefit them.
Right, because it's in an economics of exchange, not of gifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that might be, whether I like it or not, I think that's probably real. When you go and talk to someone about it, you want them to think about how it's going to be good for them, even if it's stroking their altruistic ego.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's somewhere in between, because like when I think about even the merchant class through history and kind of how it's impacted the world for good, like as a class, it's often not been either of those stories. Like it's not been this group of people who are like, this is our money.
Yeah.
We're going to keep it. Right. But it's also not been a group of people who went into a economic transaction, right? No, I mean, like where they would say, all right, we're going to make a deal, and all right, well, I'm just going to let you run all over me for it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's
right.
That's not how it works. But it is, I think it's people who in their business transactions have strived to be maybe fair and just as applied in kind of basic contract theory, right?
Fair.
Yeah.
Like from the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's like the win-win.
Right. Like
seeking the win-win.
Seeking the win-win, but also looking out for their self-interest. But then at the same time, as they gain wealth, becoming the class that actually sets up the charitable organizations, sets up the schools, like builds the institutions that produce the real wealth in the long run. And I think that's partly, I mean, as much as I'm not a big fan of Ford, that's partly the dream of Fordism, right? Is that you actually not only bring wealth to yourself, but produce enough wealth around you that you actually expand your market. For your
community.
Right? For your community, but you also expand your market. And so I think that's what's lost in the Milton Friedman era of capitalism that we're
And that's
trying
what
to
we come back
recover
to
from,
with
right?
Buddhism, this like idea of, when we get to the Buddhist side, this idea of well-being for self and others.
Right.
I think when they come back to the Western side, they talk about, well, they're doing a lot of that for their own kind of vanity.
Right.
They're doing it because,
Right.
you know
Like,
what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, do it.
they put their name on the school because
Right.
they want to be this big figure in the world.
Right.
And that's just their insatiable desire for vanity and for, you know.